Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about transit south node square opposition or inconjunct one's natal Pluto. Now, when we're talking about transits that involve the south node, it could be about what we're going away from, what we're trying to leave behind, the past, what you're naturally proficient or adept in even, and also overdeveloped and redundant qualities. Now, when you have transit south node basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal Pluto, I'm going to elaborate and expound on that, okay? When I say basically, adverse transit, okay, squares and oppositions in astrology, of course, those aspects are negative and adverse. Now, when you're talking about an inconjunct aspect can mean it's neutral, but a neutral aspect can have good and bad qualities, and it coupled with the fact that an inconjunct can often require an adjustment or transition, so this in turn can cause some exasperation and tension. So there is so basically collectively I do see this as an adverse transit. Now anyway, transit south node, when transit south node basically makes an adverse aspect to one's natal Pluto, well, it could be about what you're going away from, what you want to leave behind, the past, what you're naturally proficient in even, and overdeveloped and redundant qualities. These things may conflict with power and control. You might have difficulty controlling some of those overdeveloped and redundant qualities at this time. If you have, the transit south node is in Aquarius, it could be some kind of idiosyncratic, rebellious, non-conforming behavior, or if it's in the transit south nodes in Capricorn, it could be, just something where you're just overly, planning, premeditative over virtually every action, and taking a lot of precautions. Maybe when it's not always necessary. These are things. Transit south node in Gemini could be maybe just being very garrulous to the point where you're basically the conversation dominator, not letting other people come up for air, basically, so to speak. And it's something where it may be hard, to get away, to leave behind a situation where maybe somebody has some power over you. If you have the natal Pluto in the 10th house, it might be dealing with some, domineering, it could be the dominant parent, which is often the father, an authority figure even, maybe an older person. The thing too is Pluto is connected with transformation. So it might be a time, where you might feel, you're in your comfort zone. That's connected with the transit of the south node, and that might be conflicting with you making a major change or transformation at this point in time. And it could be a situation too. I mean, you look at this as well, where somebody from your past may come into view and might be conflicting with that. Now, I mean, if you have the natal Pluto in the 4th house, it could be something, transformation, renovation of the home that you're trying to do. And it can also be a time too. I mean, Pluto is connected with shared resources as well. And it might be a situation, if you're trying to extricate yourself from a shared resources situation, you're trying to find something where you're more self-reliant or independent or what have you, it might be harder to pull away, to get away from that at this time, more so than usual. And it can be doing something, I mean, the south node again can be connected with what, some, natural abilities, even though they may be overdeveloped and redundant qualities, they can be also things that you may be naturally adept or proficient in. And these things, might be, challenging, doing things associated with that, maybe challenging your responsibilities or duties that are in a shared resources scenario, such as being in a business partnership, as an example. Now, anatomically speaking, okay, Pluto is connected with the prostate, colon, bladder, and reproductive system. So if there's any problems, any ongoing issues with these at this time, these things that I just stated, that are anatomically connected with Pluto, it might be harder to leave them behind. It could be a situation you're trying to put them in the past, going away from them may be very difficult this time. Keep in mind that if you have the transit south node, say it's making an opposition to your natal Pluto, of course, in turn, the transit north node will conjoin your natal Pluto. And that would be issues that you may have to address and confront, where it's imminent, the situation is inevitable, where you have no choice but to deal and contend with that situation. And also too, thing about this is too, Pluto is connected with support as well, whether it can be emotional, moral, or monetary support. And it can be, if you're having to support, somebody at this time, and you're trying to, get out of doing so, it may be more difficult than you think. Whether it's a legal situation in some cases, if you're having to provide child support, as an example, say if you have the natal Pluto in the 5th house, it could be child support. It can be something too, or even if it's not compulsory or mandatory to do this, you might feel going away from this, maybe there's some guilt, or you're saddened, or you just feel some reluctance to do so, even if you feel you don't really have the resources to really spare to do this. It can be a situation, Pluto is about death as well, and this doesn't mean it's necessarily literal death, somebody dying. It could be just trying to obliterate and destroy something, put something to an end at this time. And if somebody from your past comes into view, whether it may be somebody from your early, could be your early childhood or early education, if it's a former teacher, or friend, or somebody that that you had known in the past, these people may be challenging you in terms of trying to end something at this time, or if you're trying to end a connection with somebody from your past, obliterate it, put it to a figurative death, it could be more difficult than you might realize. Now, Pluto is also connected with crisis, and it can be a time too where if you're trying to get maybe somebody from your past, that's prominent in your past, to help you deal with a crisis, it might be hard, might be an arduous task at this time. Maybe dealing with the crisis is what you don't feel you're naturally proficient in at this point in time. And also, to the South Node can be energy that can affect you to your detriment. Say if the transit South Node is in Virgo, like say, could be very worrisome energy. Being very anxious, it might cause difficulty if you're trying to deal with some crisis or adversity at this time. Pluto is also associated with surgery, and if you've been due to have surgery for a while and you've been procrastinating and putting it off, it might be inevitable where you may have to have it at this time. Trying to put it in the past or going away from this matter is something that may be very difficult, if not impossible, at this point in time. And Pluto is also associated with trauma. It could be physical trauma, injury. It might be something of an emotional nature. And if you're trying to rid yourself of this and going away from some kind of trauma, it could be physical pain. It might be some emotional trauma that you're trying to leave in the past. It might be harder to do this at this point in time. There might be recurring things from the past that are coming up that where you were traumatized emotionally, and it might be difficult to really just extricate yourself from those memories at this time even. Now, another way this transit may manifest, it could be that someone from the past, which is the South Node, may adversely affect matters that are associated with control. Now, let's say, for example, if the transit South Node is in Pisces in the 12th house, it could be somebody, that you might, maybe it was somebody that was less fortunate, which is Pisces, that you might have sacrificed and showed a lot of compassion for, which is the 12th house. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, also too, another way this transit may be expressed, it may be harder to get away from things, which is the south node going away from. That might involve, transformation or a major change. Let's say, for example, the natal Pluto is in the fourth house. It could be a transformation, which is Pluto of the home, which is the fourth house. It could be also too, at the time of this transit, something that may affect you to your detriment, which is the south node, may challenge, perhaps, doing some things that you're just simply, passionate about. You might show a lot of emotional intensity, which is connected with Pluto. Let's say, for example, if the transit south node is in Aquarius in the second house, it could be maybe it's a friend or someone that claims to be a friend. Okay, Aquarius might affect your self-worth, your self-esteem, and how you feel about yourself, which is the second house. And also, too, what you may feel comfortable doing, what your comfort zone is at this time, which is the south node, may conflict, could be with Pluto-related activities, perhaps, and which could be the occult, which includes astrology, or doing something with insurance or tax-related matter, or it could be, literally digging deep, or investigating at this time, deep research. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.